All right, everybody. Literally was talking before this for 19 minutes before we got on to recording because I was so excited for today's guest. And then we started talking, and then it's like, oh, wait, we should probably hit record at some point. So we're going to recycle what we've been talking about. We're going to be talking about some new stuff. This episode, for anybody who is going through the chronic illness journey, environmental exposure, the toxicity that happens in our everyday lives and how it manifests everywhere in your body. You're talking brain, you're talking fertility, you're talking, uh, your children and behavioral issues and all these things. The environment is such a huge component to the inflammation that's triggering all the different things that are happening in the body that are showing that particular symptom set that's coming forward. And so we all know that we have to figure out how do we get all this stuff out of our body. And part of it is avoiding / removing from the home, which we talk about all the time, right? That's a part of it. But the other part is how do I get all the stuff out of my body in the most effective way, in the quickest way that I'm going to see the most results as quickly as I can. And there's been a lot of methodologies and practices that have been used up until now. And what we're going to talk about today is a new type of process that has proven to be incredibly successful, which I will have our guest talk through here in a minute. And so without further ado, Dr. Paul Savage, he is the founder of MD Lifespan. And what they are doing in terms of helping people detoxify their bodies in multiple ways is really amazing right now. And I think it might be the future of where this path goes. And I'm really excited to kind of dig into how it works, why it works, how it compares to other things and all of that stuff. So with me to stop talking and to kick it over to Dr. Paul. Hey man, thank you. Thank you for joining.
It's seriously my pleasure. We were talking before we got recording. I've been a big fan of you and your podcast. Being a doctor in the functional integrated medicine space for 30 years now. I've been a doctor for 40 years and I've been in this space for 30 years because I got sick and I needed to go step outside traditional medicine to start making myself feel better. And I've had a wonderful spin in this world. I've built about 127 clinics nationwide and dealing with hormones or chronic illnesses. I actually built the software system because I'm a data aggregator. I like to play with the data and see where it comes from. And then I retired from my last startup in 2022. My last startup had to do with helping with people with chronic illnesses, the chronic fatigue, the mold, ticks, all those different things. But I retired because I was looking at the data and I realized what Stephen Hawking had said in 2016 had come true, that pollution and our stupidity to it is the only existential threat to mankind. And by that, what I mean is the people that I wanted to get better, I wasn't able to get better anymore. Not like I used to, because the methods that we had to pull the toxins out of people were just too much for the methods that we have. I always give the example to people that I used to take a toy sandbox shovel and I could clean out the sandbox, give me enough time and I can get all the sand out. But now we're dealing with Mount Everest. And that little shovel it just doesn't make the impact that it used to, because all the saunas and binders and chelators and even the avoidance therapy from keeping these things and the remediation, it just wasn't working well enough anymore. And it's getting worse and worse as these levels of environmental toxins have increased in the environment. We talked before we got on the show that there's over 200,000 toxins in the environment, including mold. We are dumping 100 million tons of these toxics into our environment in the United States every year. The United States is one of the most toxic countries in the world, and we're seeing it on every aspect of health and wellness, and even on the disease states. Um,
Yeah,
it's a big problem.
it is a big problem. And obviously my show focuses more on the mold side of it because that's sort of where we come from. But we do talk about these other things and how it's the combination of these things. And it's kind of what you're saying. It's like, you develop, and this happens in all areas of like human development, right? You're like, oh, we found this cool new thing. We're going to develop this thing. And then you kind of don't really understand the side effects of the thing until it's been there long enough. There all of a sudden, all the side effects start showing. And now it's like, oh God, now we got to figure out how to handle all the side effects of things that have happened. And the problem as I see it, and what got us to kind of, before now to now, is that our pace of evolution is just much faster than it used to be. in the past. And we can even see now with AI, like who the hell knows what's going to happen there, right? But that's even like an exponential pace kicker versus our pace before. And so now we're seeing all this stuff catch up to us because it doesn't happen in the snap of a finger, right? It takes time, it builds up. And now we're all playing catch up. And the problem is on the treatment side, it then has to lag because it has to develop after it knows what the problem is, right? And so a lot of the treatments that are in place, not that they're not effective, right? I mean, sauna is very well studied, for example, for decades and years, all these years back, right? But it's just like how effective can certain things be at a certain level, right? And it's exactly what you said. It's like if the load is too much, you need to have more efficient, more
A bigger
effective
tool.
things.
You need a bigger tool. You need a bigger
tool.
Because
And
you're
that's
right. I
really,
mean, the mold has been in the environment forever, but the problem is we've caused it to become much more prevalent by storing the grains in the silos and building wood houses where we used to live in caves. I mean, we've aggravated the mold problem by just giving mold places to grow and not checking its progress or understanding that the toxins that they produce are deadly to many organisms, including us. And then compounding that, and it needs to be understood this way, is all these other toxins that we as humans and through the industrialization have put into the environment. Your body doesn't really differentiate. It doesn't differentiate between a mold toxin and a pesticide or a plastic, or it just sees it as an invader. And so these are just more and more and more. So I've treated mold toxic patients for 30 years, and I always gently remind them that you are mold toxic, but you're everything toxic, including mold, because, and often is the case now, just getting the mold out isn't sufficient because what you're doing hasn't gotten out all these other things. You have to reduce the entire total toxic burden. And that's what we haven't had as a tool in medicine until now.
Yeah, because everything's been so focused on one thing, right? And I think exactly what you said lays it out really well. And I would love to like start digging into it. Like, what is this new thing we're talking about that we haven't actually talked about yet? Like, what is it? How does it work? Just walk us through the entire thing.
Therapeutic Plasma Exchange is a machine very similar to plasma donation that takes out your body's blood, separates the cellular part, which is a solid part, from the liquid part, which is your plasma. And the plasma carries everything. It's the conduit of the body. So it carries the good, the bad, and the ugly. It carries the nutrients, the medications, hormones, but it also carries inflammation, cancer, toxin, mold. Everything gets transmitted through the body through the plasma. That's the part of the blood that carries it. So plasma exchange is a method by which we take the plasma out and we exchange it for a different replacement fluid, in this case, albumin. And so we can reinfuse all your cells back into you with albumin, and within the day, your body makes fresh, new, non-toxic, non-mold, non-inflamed, non-cancer, non-everything. It's just brand new, fresh plasma. In other words, Brian, we just gave you an oil change. Remember the old days? You just put the car up on the skids, take the oil out of the bottom. It was an old car. You just got it and you're trying to get it running better. And the oil's really dirty and you put new oil in the top and you run it around the block for a couple of weeks. And then you bring it in and now the oil's not quite so dirty as it was the first time, but still pretty crappy. And then you put it back, put more oil in, run it around the block. You keep doing that till the oil runs clean. That's exactly what plasma exchange is. We do this process where we take your plasma out, we give you a replacement fluid, you make new plasma, and then a month later, we give you another oil change. And we keep doing that until the oil or the plasma runs clean. But where MD Lifespan came into being is, as functional medicine doctors, we understood what the traditional guys don't. We need to do things to augment the plasma exchange. There's ways to make it even more efficient. Number one, teach people avoidance and remediation. Because rule number one of detox is don't put them in. So by showing people how to, because a lot of the patients we see who are mold toxic come to see us, they know and they got this stuff down pat. But most of the patients we see, 72% of the patients aren't mold toxic patients. They're people coming in with, I don't know what's wrong with me, but their doctor did a toxin test and it's filled with toxins, of which many of them are mold. So they need to be taught how to avoid the mold But the interesting thing is 20, 30 years ago, if you had mercury, I'd tell you not to eat these fish. If you had mold, I'd tell you not to eat cereals and do all that. Nowadays, the environment is so filled with toxins and it's so ubiquitous, it's everywhere, that it's actually easier today than it was before to avoid the toxins. Because now you have to focus on the medium. In other words, how to filter the water, how to filter the air, how to clean the house, how to get rid of the chemicals, how to get the kitchen clean. It's really markedly easier because the place that you want to focus on is your home, because that's the most toxic place that you're going. And that's what this whole idea with avoidance therapy. So then also we added onto it about 80 different supplements that we give in a powder, so that's easy to consume. But these are anti-inflammatories, antioxidants, detoxification, mitochondrial support, energizer. So where the TPE was the oil change, the IV and the oral supplements we give people is kind of like the air for the tire, the gas for the tank, and the spark for the plug, because we got to get the engine running again. And this combination, plus the timing of the TPEs, which is critical, is what we got our international patent on.
Many questions popping in my head as you're talking through this. So let's back it up. I'm sure a lot of people don't know what albumin is.
Sure.
And why that's getting inserted, and even like the mechanism that's occurring, like when I insert that, why is different plasma now getting created? So we've effectively removed plasma, so there's less plasma in the body. We're then putting albumin back in, and then we're recreating. So can you kind of like walk through the why on that specifically and sort of what's going on?
So the body makes plasma every minute of every day. You're making new plasma all the time. This is nothing that your body, it's just part of just like you digest food all the time, your brain has electrical sparks all the time, your cells are making plasma all the time. This is just an ongoing process all the time. But what happens is when you have enough plasma at the right concentration, it's only at a certain rate. It's rate limiting by the volume that it's trying to occupy. When we take the blood out and we separate it, and we want to give you back your cells so you don't become anemic and so you get back your immune system and your platelets, but we take the plasma, which carries everything in it, and we throw it away. The reason we use albumin is we have to give you some liquid back to occupy the volume in your vascular space to keep your blood pressure up. And albumin is a perfect protein because it's easy to access. It's only albumin. It's actually it's called osmotic. So it actually sucks in the water and holds it in the vascular space until you make new plasma the next day. So albumin acts like a space holder. But the other beautiful thing about albumin is it's a sponge. So as soon as you put it back in the body, it starts grabbing all the mold. Because all the albumin you had before, because many of the molds are bound to the proteins, and the major protein in the blood is albumin. So we basically took out your old sponges and threw them away with the plasma, and now giving you albumin as a replacement fluid, we're giving you new sponges that are going around and grabbing all the mold that wasn't bound up before. So there's a double benefit in why we chose albumin to be the replacement fluid.
Interesting. It also serves as effectively a form of a binder at the same time. Like
it is the binder of the blood. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
So then the way I understand this is I am creating my own metaphors in my head. You're doing a great job with the metaphors, by the way, which I'm sure you've had to work. I have to work it out on my end too. Like people need to understand stuff in a way.
But it comes with being in the field, being a doctor for 40 years. And I always try to tease people that, I think like a child. So if I can remember the metaphors, I can take a test and I can pass.
So the thing that seems to be forming in my mind on how this works, it almost feels like the plasma creation is almost compounding on top of the previous plasma creation, which is making every time we produce more plasma, it's kind of like worse and worse and worse, which is the opposite of then by pulling it out, there's now less, and now it's mirroring less of an issue. And so then the new plasma is less of an issue. Then you pull it out and then you come back and you have less and you're mirroring less. And that is kind of the stair step to reduction. So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, then the stair step to, let's call it not healthy plasma or overloaded plasma, whatever we want to call it, is effectively like compounding on past exposures over and over. And it's almost like replicating itself in a way.
Well, the one thing that's interesting about this therapy on getting toxins out compared to other therapies is I'm not giving you anything. I'm taking it away.
Right.
I'm not giving you a binder. I'm not giving you a chelator. I'm not heating you up as a sauna. I'm actually literally taking things away and throwing it away. So this is the beauty of it, is it bypasses all your detox pathways because it like
Mm,
literally just taking it out.
mm. So how long does it take? So we're being exposed over periods of time, right? We've kind of talked about this load that's building up with us. So you obviously the body at the beginning is creating plasma that's fine, right? And then we get exposed and starts creating worse and worse and worse
Well,
plasma.
I mean, honestly, that's not true because this
Oh, okay.
recent studies show newborns are born with 270 different neurotoxins, assortment of mold toxins, and their meconium is filled with plastics. It's the blood of the mom is getting through the placenta into the baby, and the babies are already being born toxic. The ECHO study that was just published this past year looked at 2, 3, and 4 year olds, and they had over 32 to 36 different toxins that they measured for in their blood. And the other thing is, there's been other studies that show that the umbilical cord has 270 neurotoxins, of which many of them are mold as the neurotoxins. So we're not born pristine anymore.
I'm
Not
so
unless,
happy
not
that you said.
unless, not unless the mom had the plasma exchange done first and got the toxins out before she got pregnant, because the baby is getting the same toxin load that the mom has.
I'm so happy that you said that. And I'm glad that you corrected me on it because I've literally been diving down this rabbit hole that we just kind of opened up, which is the pre-fertility and then the right after and the increase in autism and the increase in all of these
In my
things.
opinion, and the opinion of the pediatric geriatric geneticists that I work with, we are all convinced that autism, it maps out exactly with the neurotoxins that have been increasing in the environment over the last 40 years.
I'm so glad that you said that. I'm really happy that you corrected me on that. I was trying to give a high level analogy. You're like, no, I get it, but you got to understand what's
You
happening
got
right
to
now.
start
And
at the
it's
base, which this is the reason why I believe, I mean, I'm biophysics and I'm a statistician, I'm looking at these numbers. This is why I believe there's such a rapid increase in cancer in the 50-year-olds, but not the 60, 70, and 80-year-olds. Is because the 50-year-olds were the first generation born to toxic moms.
what's the what is the difference in the like the ratios, the comparisons that you're talking about
The
in terms of the
acceleration,
age group?
the
Yeah,
the the 50-year-olds are increasing at a 17% rate higher than everything else.
wow.
And the other thing that we're seeing in the 50-year-olds that are getting cancer, it's coming out aggressive. It's not like the cancer. Cancer goes through many different stages before it becomes aggressive. We're seeing cancer in the 50-year-olds that is as aggressive a cancer as we've ever seen in any other patient. But it's also mostly started. We started noticing in the gastrointestinal tract. So it was the stomach and the colon. What's in the stomach? What's in the? I mean, it's we're ingesting toxins, and that's the first thing that the toxins are touching. Now, this is my own thought process. I'm not saying it's validated out. The numbers on the cancer rates are true. The number on increasing incidence of autoimmunity in the 50-year-olds is true. The increase in amount of neurodegenerative disease is true. The increase in autism is true. And if you ask me, the one thing that ties that all together are the environmental toxins, including mold. And
It's a
I'm going to
really
just give a quote. You probably heard this before. Stephen Hawking said in 2016, about a year before he died, he said, when he was asked, a question, he said, pollution and our stupidity to it is the only existential threat to mankind. And I believe that he was 100% correct.
yeah. It's interesting. Functional medicine. I mean, I would imagine developed terrain theory would be my guess because it aligns with functional medicine.
Yeah.
But the internal terrain is directly impacted by the external terrain. I've coined a phrase that I'm actually going to be talking at a conference about at some point called dual terrain theory, which is you have to have the area that you're wanting your internal terrain to be more optimized. The external terrain that your body lives in needs to be optimized, which then downstreams into the
Correct.
viruses and the
You
health
are
and all that stuff.
100% correct. That is the whole idea of our protocols, because we're not just doing plasma exchange, and some people are. So, as I mentioned, though, one of the important things that we did is we did testing on people on their mold and other toxic before and after we did TPE, and we measured the level at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 weeks after plasma exchange. We thought that the toxins, because we know the toxins are in the tissues and we're only removing the toxins in the plasma. So there has to be a period of time of equilibration where the tissue levels are coming down and the plasma levels are coming up. That's just how the body works. That's just biophysics. But we thought it was going to be about a week or 10 days when all these toxin levels equilibrated. Some of them did, but the lipophilic toxins, the mold, the plastic, the pesticides, and the PFAs took 3.5 weeks, which is why whether people decide to do this protocol with us or with anybody else, a month has to go between the plasma exchanges. Otherwise, you're not getting the maximum withdrawal of the toxins. And the purpose is to remove the toxins. You have to wait a month in between to let the toxins equilibrate.
Very interesting. And then how many cycles? So you're putting them a month apart.
Yeah.
So does the number of cycles depend on the initial lab tests that come in? Like, how does that get structured?
It depends on the initial lab tests that come in, and it depends upon the condition of the patient. So the more toxins you have and the worse toxins you have, or the more inflammation you have or chronic inflammatory disease, you're going to get 5.
Okay. So
That
5
test
is the most.
No, 5's not the most.
Oh,
17% of our patients have done 5, and we retest them because we don't test after every TPE. We did plenty of that in the beginning stages. So
yep.
what our goal is, so first off, people can come to our website at mdlifespan.com. They can schedule a call. There's no charge. They get to meet one of our healthcare providers, which explains what plasma exchange is and who we are, and the price points, which we need to talk about because it's not inexpensive. And then if it works out well, then they move them on to a evaluation with one of our clinicians, me or one of my other 2 doctors. And then you upload your lab, your questionnaire, and we go through all your history and we come up to a conclusion of which protocol would be better for you. Because once we had that protocol of removing toxins, we knew we could do something better. So we started tipping them in different directions. And so we have one that we developed with Dr. Carnahan that is specifically for mold. So it's our base core protocol with a lot more of the mold. There's a binder included. There's nasal sprays with iconazole and silver. There's many other things that we add to it to help remediate the body of the mold.
Yep.
At the same time, they go through a different avoidance therapy training so that they have more, so they can, like we were talking about doing home testing and all these things because you got to clean up the environment. So the protocols change depending on how we're skewing it towards different people and different conditions. So we have one for people who want to prevent against cancer or who have had cancer, want to clean up their microenvironment. We have one for people who have oxidative stressors causing heart disease. We have one for people with cognitive issues, including early dementia. We have one of these protocols that we aim at mold and all the different mold types because it's a special animal all on its own. We have one that's we developed for moms who want to be clear of toxins before they get pregnant. We just have a number of different protocols, and they all depend upon what the patient wants as their outcome.
No, it makes a lot of sense. So the way that I understand it, the TPE is kind of the starting point foundation. Let's clean out the car. Let's get it to a base level that is like, hey, we got to get all the toxin load out as much as we can. And then on top of that is layered in specific protocols based on the primary goal of the person. So if the labs are indicating significant mold issues and they have to lean more towards the mold side, but if they're coming in and there's cognitive decline, then you have other protocols you lay on top that are more, neuro supportive.
But there's a lot of evidence out there. There's certain supplements that are better for mold detox. There's certain supplements that are better for brain health. There's certain supplements that are better for cardiac health. I mean, we know those formulas. We just integrated them into our protocols.
This is really, really cool. So in the development of these different protocols, you mentioned, I think everybody knows Dr. Jill Carnahan, but if you don't, she's one of the mold superheroes.
I call her the mold queen.
Yeah, she's big. She's been on this show. I've been on hers. We've been working together for a long time too. So I think everybody probably knows who she is. So she kind of came in and said, hey, listen, let's frame this around mold. How did you guys structure the other ones? Did you kind of bring in the same type of individual around the other areas and structure them like that?
I have 30 scientific advisors as part of MD Lifespan. Now we work with the Montessori School of Medicine, and all of my clinicians and nurses are certified in the personalized medicine certification. All the nurses are also have a great deal of experience in ultrasound guided IV insertions. They're all credited for apheresis by the company and then the scientific advisors. I'm talking about chairs at the University of Chicago, chairs in Jacksonville, Ohio. Jill Carnahan is one of us. So I brought in environmental toxicologists and clinical toxicologists and mold toxicologists. I brought in functional medicine doctors. I brought in board certified neurologists, board certified cardiologists, board certified oncologists. We have a whole group of these people that we all got together and said, here's the protocol. Now let's start adapting it so it works better on these specific cases. So we always talk about the protocol being three different parts. There's the detox phase, there's the regenerative phase, and then there's the maintenance phase. It's the regenerative phase that really changes a lot depending on the disease state, because the detox phase, it's the same structure for all of them because it's effective, and the toxins cause over 200 diseases, and they complicate every other disease state.
What does the maintenance stage look like?
Maintenance states is basically remediation and avoidance. And now we're 3 years down on the road. Every single patient that we've done has lower levels of toxins today than they did when we ended the program. What we think we're doing is we've been able to unburden the body enough that the body can then start its pathways up again, because you'd be shocked if you heard how many high critical toxins I think the average healthy person has in the United States. It's not a dozen. It's about 26,000 by our calculations. And then the sick people can be much more. But one thing I want to make sure that readers understand, just because you don't have a big toxic burden on your toxin test doesn't mean you don't have toxins. There's a couple of things going on here. We're only testing for 100 toxins out of 200,000 toxins. So we're only testing for 0.1% of all the available toxins out there. So just because a toxin test doesn't show you have a lot, doesn't mean you don't. The other thing is, it's not just about how many toxins you have and how, what we call virulent, or how, what we call high toxicants are. It depends on your DNA. Some people can manage with good detox pathways a lot of toxins. I've seen people come back with 42 out of 109. They feel fine, but they have really good detox genes. They have really good base genes. And then I see other people with relatively lower amount of toxins, and they're very, very sick. And their detox pathways are worse, and their gene set is worse, as it were, because toxins are the cause, in my opinion, toxins are the primary cause of chronic inflammation. Why do I say that? All these toxic patients come to us with chronic inflammatory disease and inflammation. This process removes the toxins and neutralizes the inflammation, and we don't see it return.
You know, you just said something that spawned a question. You said if somebody has good detox pathways and they can mobilize and move things, that you may test them, they have 40 whatever toxins as an example or whatever. I guess my question is, like, if they're still in the body, are they really okay? Or is it just they're not symptomatic
I don't think
yet?
so. No, I don't think so. They feel okay, but at
Yeah.
some point, the toxins are going to win, because it only takes one break of one DNA at one point. So no, we don't have the data to say that. We don't have the data yet. We only have 3 years of data of how this process works. We had to make a decision about 2 years ago. Do we present this to the public with the understanding that we're not making any claims other than we can lower toxic levels, which we have published papers on? I want to be real clear. The rest of it is just, it just makes sense that if you want to live a long, healthy life, it's probably minimal toxic in your, as you were saying, in your internal environment. I think that's a pretty logical statement. I don't think it'll get very many pushbacks, but we won't know that until we watch these people 20 years out that we've done, and they have a lot lower rate of diseases than the people who didn't do it.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like when you have to jump through hoops of waiting a lifetime to like prove something that seems relatively obvious.
Yeah.
You end up with a generation of people smoking cigarettes in delivery rooms when their kids are being born.
Exactly.
When you knew, and the government, everybody knew like a long time beforehand that this is not good. And it's like this decision that a person has to make where it's like, listen, I can wait for somebody to tell me that this is 100% whatever, or I could use my own brain. And there's so much more information available now, like in research and things that are out, that you actually can validate and show this stuff in certain ways. It's just not, stamped by whoever the god of stamping approvals is. And at that point, like, we
That
have
would
the
be
ability.
the government.
Yeah. And so we have the ability to kind of make these decisions on our own in areas to redirect the path that we're going, as opposed to being this person that we just talked about. We're like, hey, I got 42 toxins, but I feel fine because I'm mobilizing them well enough at the moment to not have immediate symptoms in the now. But that just means it's in my opinion, it's just a more dangerous situation, because like pain response and pain and feeling pain is our natural way to know that something is wrong and we have to handle it. And when you can't feel the pain, then you lose the motivation to solve that problem. And that, for me, as I think about just like kind of human nature and how we sort of make decisions and what drives and why our systems are built the way they are, these things that are low grade, long term, we're not feeling it in the now, we don't prioritize it enough because it's not right now. And our natural survival instinct is current pain solved now, right? Because that's what we need. And it's what we were talking about at the beginning. It's this just
That's
aggregation
why
of.
prevention has taken so long for people to get into their head that, yeah, that's probably a better way than just waiting for stuff to happen. Because most of the healthcare in the United States, it's reactive. That's how it's built. It monitors, it pre-screens some things, but even the cancer screenings only cover about a third of the cancers that kill people. Two-thirds of them go on without ever being detected to your stage 4. I mean, it's not a preventative healthcare system that we live in. Although I think there's a growing need as well as a growing desire of the populations, because people come to you, people like you and I, like, I think this might be an issue. And then we have the other side of the people who've already gotten sick and they didn't know they had mold. They didn't know they got exposed. So, I mean, I've heard this story 10 times. I mean, and they're like, I just went into this house. I moved out. I didn't feel well. Come to find out, it had all this mold, and then we connect that with the mold they had in the house, with the mold they have in them, and like, yep, it's chronic
Yeah.
inflammation. Tough.
Have you what have you seen? I'm sure you have to like say things very specific around this topic, but like on the cancer side of things specifically, like what terms of progress, success, I'm not sure the right word to use here,
Well,
have you seen
so
that
yeah,
people
I
are
get where
feeling?
you're going with the cancer question. The cancer question is this: TPE can be used. We use our cancer protocol we use on patients who've had cancer and want to clean up their microenvironment in order to lessen their risks, in their opinion, and our opinion, on getting cancer again. I think that's a fairly reasonable thing to agree on. And we offer this protocol as a way of people cleaning up their microenvironment. This whole thing on our whole protocol, we're not curing cancer, we're not curing heart disease, we're not curing Alzheimer's, we're not curing anything. What we're doing is we're getting out the toxins and cleaning up the microenvironment. How that benefits the body is doesn't really need to be explained, because if you clean up the microenvironment, the body works the way it's supposed to. The cells work the way they're supposed to, and all the bad things that happen can't.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So obviously somebody has to come in person because you're doing these treatments. So how does this work logistically? Like, where are you guys set up? Like, are people flying places and staying for periods of time? Like, how do you typically see this working?
So the most of the calls with the physicians, which are licensed in every state that we operate, it's virtual. So the people come in, they talk to, they do a screening visit to make sure we're right for them. They're right for them, because TPE can't be done on everybody. We don't do it on people under 18. We don't do it if you had surgery, heart attack, stroke, or congestive heart failure within 6 months. We don't do it on people who are severely epileptic, who you can't mess with their medicines, who are severely asthmatic because you can't mess with their medicines, or have severe cardiac arrhythmias because you can't mess with their medicines, because TPE takes everything out. So there's a bunch of we can't do it on people who are on blood thinners that are trying to prevent stroke or blood clots, because we're taking that stuff out. So there's a lot of patients that we just want to make sure move on to the evaluation that qualify to get the procedure. So that's the first step that we do. Then
Yep.
we talk to these people and try to work together on a plan for them.
Cool. What did I not ask that I should have asked?
You asked about the locations. I didn't get there. We have
Well,
6 locations. We have 3 more coming up in the next 6 weeks, and we've just signed with a group which should have another 30 centers in 2026. Because the most difficult thing is right now we're in New Jersey, Chicago, Detroit, Sarasota, Orlando, Houston, Denver, and then we're going to be in Arizona and Scottsdale, and then we're within the next 90 days we're going to be in LA, Atlanta, and Miami. So, but then we have Ohio and all these other places come, because it is the most difficult thing is travel. And people have to come to us, get the plasma exchange. But the visits and the other parts of the program are all done visually. So, and generally what people do is they um, come in the night before or the day of. They come get their plasma exchange. In most cases, with most patients, it's safe for them to go home the same day. But, and the sicker people, the real mold toxic people, the people with severe chronic fatigue, the people who've been sick for a long time, we usually do only a half transfusion, a half exchange on the first one, because as you know, as I do, these people, if you do too much too fast, they crash. And I mean, by that hurts and get sick. And so the nice thing about working with us for the mold patients is our doctors are very well educated and experienced in dealing with mold patients. And most of the mold patients get a half an exchange on the first one, especially the ones that have been sick for a very long time, because in medicine, um, slow and steady wins the day.
what's the average time duration from start to finish? So
About
you got
6
your
months.
obviously maintenance is like I guess after, but for the first 2 stages.
About 6 months to go
So
through the.
that's the TPE processes as well as the secondary regenerative protocols.
The other thing you didn't ask, and it's important to ask, and it's important people to understand,
Okay.
TPE is not inexpensive. It's expensive. Okay.
Mm.
If you look around the country for people offering TPE, the general price for a single TPE, just the TPE process itself, is between $4,500 and $10,000, and insurance does not pay for this.
Mm.
We have MD Lifespan. We made ourselves a public benefit corporation, which means that we will be driving the price down. We've been able to lower our price over 30% in the last 3 years, and our goal is to lower it 30% more in the next 3 years. We've also made our protocol much more effective than just TP alone, so in that way you can get fewer and get the same or not better response. So we're doing a lot of things to enhance the process, and we publish papers along that fact as well. So the price, for some of the people with their mold toxicity, and I want to make sure people understand, this isn't the price for the TPE. This is the price for everything: the visits, the labs, the medications, the IVs, the oral supplements. Everything's included in these packages. They run between $20,000 and $50,000, depending on which disease process we're looking at.
Yeah.
Now, we do
Yeah.
provide financing. We do provide financing. So people only have to pay half down, and then they can pay the other half at 30, 60, 90 days. That's just our standard way of charging for this, because we're doing everything possible, because there's a lot of people out there that need this that can't afford that price point. But again, it was 30,000 to 60,000. Now it's 23 to 50,000. We think in the next 3 years we can get it down to 15 to 38,000. We're still driving that price because everybody needs to get this. And the long-term goal is we're driving this into Medicare. We expect, we're working with people to make this so that this is available through insurance to the people who need it most, but that's going to be years down the road.
Yeah. Listen, you have to start somewhere, right? And the problem with this type of forward thinking and in new ways of doing anything, it's kind of what we said way at the beginning, right? Like you play catch up and it takes, you're talking insurance, right? Like that's a big rock to move up, a very big
Yep.
hill to get them to recognize something. And so it is expensive, but I think is, to some people and honestly, expensive. Yes, monetarily, there's a cost to things, right? But I
With
look
the
at
last
things,
company, with the last company I owned, the average mold patient spent about $100,000 in 10 years.
and this is what we're talking about, right?
And
It's
I'm telling
it's the
you, nothing you did in that 10 years is anything close to what we offer here. This is a game changer, as Jill Carnahan says, for the people with chronic mold toxicity. I tell people all the time, this isn't the end of being sick, but this is the beginning of getting better.
Yeah, I love that because a lot of times we don't think of it that way. You think of it as a single transaction, but the reality is like how long have you been dealing with this? How much longer are you going to be dealing with this? And it's the supplements and it's the visits and it's all the things put together. And in that time, by the way, it's not just the cost that's accumulating and exceeding this. You're also feeling like crap that entire time, right? So it's a combination of it ends up costing more, and the 5 to 10 years or whatever you're going through this process, like getting that time back, like that is priceless beyond what it is,
You
right?
can
And
you can
so
go to our Instagram, you can go to our website, you can see the video testimonials of all the mold patients. I'm really happy to report patients are very adamant and excited about sharing their experiences with other people. So we get a lot of push out from you. We get a lot of push out from social media on patients that have been through this process. Um, but because the number one thing here at MD Lifespan is the patient's safety. I've built many different companies in the medical space. All of them are successful with always the same model each time. Patients' safety is first. Take care of the patients, they'll take care of the revenue. You don't need to do anything other than care for the patient, make sure you can do everything possible because getting these patients better. I don't know if you know, Brian, I don't know if I explained it, but I retired after my last company because of all the toxins. And then afterwards, I read a paper that gave me this idea. And I could sit there with this idea and not work on it. I was like, holy crap. I know how to get all the toxins out, including all the mold toxins. Oh my God. And I called Jill, to Dr. Carnahan. I called a couple other toxicologists I knew. I said, tell me I'm crazy, but I just came up with this crazy idea. And they're like, I think you're right. I'm like, oh crap, I have to unretire now.
tell me about the paper. How old was the paper? Like, what did you find? Is this something that had been sitting out there for a while and nobody really
No,
put it
no, we
together?
just published it like 4 months ago. We have four other papers that are in process of being published right now. So we have a paper that we published on can serial TPE with nutrient therapy lower environmental toxins? The answer is yes, very well. Matter of fact, it only took about 6 to 9 patients for us to get a p-value of 0.004, which is that means you had a really big change in this number of
Yes.
people to be able to get a p-value with only a single digit number of clients. And we also have a paper coming out on mold toxins, on heavy metal toxins, on PFAS, and then we have one on microplastics.
Wow. It's amazing. All right. So ndlifespan.com, free phone consult, figure out if it makes sense.
Free
Obviously,
guidebooks, free guidebooks you can download to learn how to do avoidance therapy. And the mold guidebook was done in conjunction with Dr. Jill. So that was a joint effort between us. And now the
love
next
it.
guidebook that comes out, we're going to be a joint effort with Brian Kerr on adding his expertise into the information.
You all heard it here first. It's official. I'm in a guidebook. Here we go. So, well, listen, I appreciate it, and what you guys are doing is really cool and clearly effective, and I'm more than happy to do whatever I can to help push the process along for people and
Yeah,
help them
it's
succeed
really
with that.
I mean, my days are great because I get to talk to these patients after they're through, and I'm very pleased to say the patients have very good experience with us, and they also have very good results with us, not only in the other toxin sound, which we have published papers for, but I'm real happy that the patients are so willing to give the testimonials on their experience and how it's changed. Because there's a lot of things I can't say, but the patient can't because that's their experience, and it's been very pleasing. It's a gift. It's a gift.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for taking time for joining. This has been an awesome conversation. I hope everyone, like, listen, look into it, dig into it, right? If you're going through this, you're digging into other things, and you probably heard of a lot of other things, and they're all effective in their own way to some degree. This is kind of the next evolution of what this looks like, and how to process this stuff, and give it some time, right? And see if it makes sense to you. And I'm always a big fan of like, you dig into something, you feel like if it resonates with you and if it makes sense, and if it makes sense to you, then you're like, okay, at least I know that I've done my piece in this. And if you feel like that it's something you need to do, then you figure that out if you need to, right? But like, we have the ability to dig into stuff now that we didn't before, but you got to do it on your own. And as much as you guys like listening to me, whatever worth you stick in my voice, stuff like this, and even like with what we do on our end, like I really feel like you need to dig into it, understand the differences, understand the benefits and the cons and what it looks like. And there are things that will just naturally be obvious at the end of that process, right? And that's when people make decisions. That's where I want them to get with us personally. I want them to be like, I mean, there's clearly no other way to do this. Like, this is the way to do this. And I feel like you guys are putting together the ability for people to come to the same conclusion. So it's really cool.
Thanks.
All right.
Been great.
Well, thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much.